where he talked about the Paramount logo with the 22 stars and the emblem. But if you look in the Book of Enoch, it talks about 22 stars of the chief. They were the chief of the archons that came down, the watchers. They were the chief ones that went around the mountain and made this pact. Well, I kind of broke it down and showed the Paramount logo in the background and kind of deciphered it all through the video, and it actually reached 10 million people. 10 million. And I don't know how that reached that much. I know it was only by the will of the Father. But I believe that seed was set, and it made me gather a lot of people on my TikTok. And it was so great because all the people that I was pretty much promoting, they all got to see that. They all got to go through my page and see these people that I'm promoting, and they're learning more truth and more truth. So that's kind of how it started off for TikTok with me.
Wow, man. Wow. For those of you that aren't as familiar with what he was just talking about, there is back at Genesis 6 there's some very key moments of understanding why we are where we are today. Like, rather than just looking, there's two main areas that you have to attack when you're dealing with giants. In Amos 2:9, it says basically let me just grab it for you, because we got to talk strategies for how we destroy this entire network of radical intelligent evil that's just raping and pillaging and plundering society. And Amos 2:9 has this passage. Anytime, dude, I'm just always looking for ways of fighting, in the scriptures. So anytime I see this stuff, I'm like, oh yes. Check this out. He's talking about the wicked here in the book of Amos here. He says, and thus said Yahuwah, for 3 transgressions of Yisrael, and for 4, I do not turn it back, because they sell the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of sandals, who crush the head of the poor ones in the dust of the earth, and turn aside the way of the meek. And a man and his father go into the same girl to defile my set-apart name. And they lie down by every slaughter place on garments taken in pledge. And in the house of their mighty one, they drink the wine of those who have been fined. Yet I destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was as strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit from above and his roots from beneath. This to me was like fundamental warfare strategies for how they could actually kill and fight back against these giants. The Amorites is one of those tribes that was to be blotted out when they came into the land, the promised land, the land of Canaan. And when they came into there, the Amorites, you see here, it's talking about the height of the cedars, y'all. The heights of the cedars is hundreds of feet. So you want to talk about the biggest cedars in the earth? They're all over here in America, by the way. They're not over in Lebanon, the country. But they are 400 feet tall. We're not talking about some kind of like tall dude. We're not talking about some guy with giganticism and is 9 foot tall. We're talking about supernatural, gigantic beings, like living mountains, huge monstrosities of creatures. These things required an incredibly different form of tactics and strategy. And there's a reason when they sent in the 12 spies to go and check out the land, and they're like, listen, the heights of their gates and their cities reach to the heavens. They're not joking. These things were unbelievable. It says that we are like grasshoppers in their sight. And I just want you to stand for a second. If any of you have never been to like the Sequoia National Forest or seen the redwoods, like when you stand at the base of those things, you are straight up a cricket at the foot of that thing. You are like that. That's what you're dealing with. And so there had to have been a strategy to go in there. And Joshua, right before they go into battle in Jericho and invade the whole entire territory, the captain of the heavenly host comes and like meets with him with his sword drawn. And I believe that's literally the time when the company commander came and met with his general and is like, here's what's going to go down out there. You know what I mean? Here, come here, Captain. We're going to go have a talk. And it's like he gave him the download for how to physically and conquer these people. And they had training, basic combat training in the wilderness with these 20-year-olds and under as they grew up for 40 years. Those people got specialized combat and tactics instructions for how to fight these bad guys. And so they had an understanding of what Moses was referencing back in Genesis 6 when he said, and in the days, let's just read it real quick, because this is one of those reasons. You got the main incursion, the first incursion of the serpent coming in the garden, and then you have a second incursion of a major cataclysmic event that takes place in Genesis 6, or that's mentioned in Genesis 6, that takes place really in the days of Jared. And it says, and And it came to be when men began to increase on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of Elohim, this is angels, by the way, this is not sons of Seth, this is sons of Elohim. These are B'nai Ha-Elohim, angels, okay? Watcher angels, specifically, a class that we could call Grigores in the Greek terms. They saw the daughters of men that they were good, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. And Yahweh said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever in his going astray. He is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of name. And Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his hearts was only evil continually. And Yahweh was sorry that he made man on the earth, and was grieved in his heart, and said, I am going to wipe off man from whom I've created from the face of the ground, both man and beast, creeping creatures and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I've made them. There was chief leaders of these rebel messengers, these rebel watchers who came down. What he is talking about, those 22 stars, there's 22 specifically named deities, mighty ones, who came down, and they were the ones that were in charge, the shot callers. And it describes some of the attributes of the secrets of wisdom, of secrets of heaven, that they came down and taught men. And a lot of it had to do with violence, astrology, divination, medium, sorcery, necromancy, battle, all types of different ways of making weapons and armory and mixing of metals and music. I mean, there's a great variety of like pouring out of the occult sciences, for lack of a better word. Another guy who's got I don't have it right here. Anyways, it's in the other room. Gary Wayne wrote this book that's called The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, which is one of the best books to go through, reading kind of the actual like perspective of lenses of what all these people believe and why they believe what they believe. That book goes into a lot of really profound detail. But the book of First Enoch that he just mentioned there, Zach, deals with what they did and why they did it. And that insemination of their seed line produced an offspring of hybrids. Like you see right here, the Nephilim. In Deuteronomy, you hear about these other classes of beings, these other mighty ones that were immortals. You had these immortals that were having sex with women, and then they gave birth to the Nephilim, and now you have a partial mortal and a partial immortal stuck together. And after the flood, this is literally where we got these disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, because their souls, after they died, could not go and be in the heaven. They also couldn't leave the earth, so they were bound here. And this is what became these tormenting beings, these giants of spiritual stature that we're wrestling against here. And so the book of First Enoch is one of the best books to be able to examine and understand a lot more of this minutia of why you got here. And Zach, I think you put together a lot of these videos, man, that are just, they're simple and they're profound at being able to communicate these concepts to people that need to be able to hear and get exposed to that in a really profound way.